The Last of Us 2 is a complicated game. It was a sequel to the beloved PS3 title that was released 7 years before the sequel. It expanded the world, it had bold decisions, it had a story which seemingly was very opposite in narrative than that of the first game. Let's talk about it. A YouTuber named tlou2 made a video. It was called A Beautiful Disappointment, The Last of Us Part 2. In this video, he talks a lot about ludonarrative dissonance between the gameplay and the story, and what he believes players like himself felt like critical plot moments. While I agree with his points, his perspectives on why the game failed is actually quite different to mine, and I'd like to talk about it. I picked up The Last of Us Part 1 roughly 2019 where I bought the PS4 for the first time. I was a little bit late to the party as clearly the game had released 6 years prior and the majority of people who had a PS4 had already experienced it. But similar to those players, I have adored the characters of both Joel and Ellie and are genuinely one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Then, I played The Last of Us 2 on release and finished it all in one weekend. I did not like the game. In fact, for at least a little while, I detested it. Whilst tlou2 actually loved the gameplay and had a lot of fun and was engaged with it, which led to the many failures revealed in his video, I actually did not love the combat. I found the gameplay serviceable and it's actually somewhat quite shallow. I see now that I could have interacted much more deeply with the combat, as seen with many skilled players using every tool possible and making the game look flashy and much more fun than what I experienced. On the other hand, I was purely interested in the story. I enjoyed the first game's combat, but I didn't think too much of it. After all, the game was a little under half the length of The Last of Us 2, so the combat not being extremely in-depth did not heavily affect the enjoyability of the game for me. So, what does this mean for my experience of the game? Well, Rick mentioned many of the techniques that Naughty Dog used to attempt to make the player feel bad about their actions. Moreover, Rick talks about one specific scene. The scene where Ellie tortures Nora is intended to be gruesome, shocking, and a terrifying watch. The player is not shown the brutality of the event, instead being forced to imagine what each consecutive blow does to her, all whilst watching Ellie delve deeper into her rage, having blood and gore splatter aimlessly on her face and body. The game is trying to make you feel bad about this. The use of the prompt gives the player the illusion of agency, despite technically being forced to press it. Rick said he, and supposedly many other players, felt awful when doing this. The player is in control of Ellie and is thus brutally torturing a dying sick woman with nowhere to run. So, why did this not work for me? Now, let me preface that what I'm about to say with the fact that I am a loving person and a non-sadist who is not violent whatsoever. Okay, you got that? Well, I wanted to do as Ellie does. I did not care for Nora, and I wanted her to die as much as Ellie did. I, as the flawed, emotional human being that I am, loved Joel so much as a character that when I saw Nora, Abby, and the rest of her friends disrespectfully murder Joel, I would never be able to forgive them. In fact, Nora is a superficial character. I cannot for the life of me remember one thing about her other than her death. So when Ellie tortured her for her part in Joel's death, I wanted it to happen. I also wanted to enact my revenge, just like Ellie. So in summary, unlike Rick and many others, my engagement with the story was through the desire to see Ellie's revenge accomplished. I truly despised all of the people connected to Abby. Thus, I was unable to more thoughtfully and critically engage in any of the key themes and messaging that Naughty Dog attempted to communicate with me. They failed to engage me in a way that made me think that my actions as Ellie were bad. Whilst I knew they were bad, as I have been taught that revenge is bad and am aware of the mischievous cycle of violence, the poor, shallow characters and the continued villainy of Abby with no redemption, as well as the overly long and ultimately, for me at least, boring gameplay ruined any chance that the story would work for me. As a post final thought, I'd like to add that another reason this game left me completely unsatisfied and frustrated is that characters don't really develop, and most characters I used to love are so different and antagonistic that both sides are undesirable to root for. Ellie has become a brutal, violent, and selfish psychopath that acts nothing like the Ellie from the first game. Maturing is one thing. Becoming someone so different that she could have been replaced by a new character is something else. The only thing that ties Ellie to this game is that Joel from the first game is connected and then he dies in the first moments. Tommy was a professional killer and was extremely cool and interesting, yet in the end, his sentiment on telling Ellie not to go only to then flip in the end where he shames her for failing and not finishing her vengeance is abhorrently idiotic writing. Not only did I fail to engage meaningfully with Abby and her side of the coin, I also failed to engage meaningfully with Ellie and her side of the coin. The game failed to capture any critical and thought-provoking engagement from me, simply frustrating me and providing me with a game that ruined a story and characters that I used to vehemently love. Thank you.